Well, good morning, gentlemen. All right, welcome to another Bloodhound workshop. So I do have two emailed in questions to get today's workshop started. And let's see here. I'm still taking a look at the names. Let's see. Well, actually, yeah, there's a couple of names I'm not positive on. So, I'm not sure I recognize or not. So before I get started here, let me just double check and ask if there's anybody new to these workshops today or fairly new to these workshops. And the question is, would you like to hear the workshop introduction? All right. So the workshop introduction is I'll explain what these workshops are and what they are not. And then secondly, I'll explain how the recordings work. So if you do ask a question or if you email the question in for these workshops, I'll explain how you can get that recording, how long that takes and everything. All right. And then the last topic here for the workshop introduction is I'll explain the indicators that I can install into my machine here. All right. So if anybody would like to hear the workshop introduction, let me know. Otherwise, I will get started with the two emailed in questions, and then I'll take your guys' live questions in the Q&A window afterwards. Right. Okay. Well, it doesn't look like there's any takers for the workshop introduction. So with that, let's see, actually, hold on. Let me see what Craig has here. All right, so yeah, so Craig, today is the Bloodhound workshop. All right, so Bloodhound does not submit orders. Blackbird does there. Let's see here, exit, stop, gain parameters. Well, actually, yeah, let me have you kind of clarify your question here. So, are you talking about Blackbird or are you talking about Raven? All right, so with shark indicators, we have two strategies here. So we have Blackbird and we have Raven. All right, so since Raven is free and it comes with Bloodhound, right? So if you purchased Bloodhound only, you do have Raven there. So since Raven comes with Bloodhound for free, I do answer Raven questions during the Bloodhound workshop. So that's the one exception. But Blackbird, because it's far more complex, it actually has its own workshops here on Fridays there. So, and yeah. Let's see here. And let's see here. Okay, actually, it just doesn't sound like it's a question for either one here. All right. All right. So, yeah. So, Craig, that question's a little complicated here. So, let me get through the emailed in questions first here, and then I'll circle back around to your question there. All right. So, okay. So let's get back. Let me get back on track here with the emailed in questions. So let's see here. Yeah, this is actually the second question here. All right. So I don't have any screenshots for the first question today. So I will have to explain it here on the chart here. All right. So the question is to demonstrate how you can check the distance between two indicators as a filtering mechanism here. So the full question is, all right, so we have these double EMAs or DEMAs here. And so when a crossover occurs, these two other EMAs need to have a certain distance of separation there in order to qualify or validate the crossover of the DEMAs. So let's see here if I can find an example. Yeah, like I think, yeah, here would be an example, right? So we have a crossover here, right? So the DEMAs are the two blue lines. So we have a crossover, and the EMAs are the two green lines here. And we can see, right, that two EMAs are really close together. So that would disqualify, or maybe it qualifies. So I don't have an exact explanation there of the question. So we're going to cover both here, right? So I'll show how to use the comparison solver to identify when two moving averages or two indicators are close together, and that will qualify, right? Or it essentially is used as a filter, right? So we're going to filter these crossover signals by either requiring the two moving averages to be really close together, or like over here, these crossovers, though the two EMAs need to have a minimum separation distance apart, right? So we're going to cover both of those there. All right, so with that, let's get Bloodhound open. And the first thing we want to do is save a file name. All right, so let's put in today's date. There we go. All right, and let's see here. I'm not sure what to call this topic yet, so I'll come back and rename the logic template here a little bit later. So, all right, so let's start with the base signal here, right, which is just a crossover of the DEMAs. All right, so let's put it in the crossover, and let's name this here. All right, so it's just the 10 period crossing the 30 period. Again, this really isn't a part of the question, but it provides us signals, to see, if how our separation of the two other EMAs, are filtering or not filtering. Let's see here. All right, so there's the first DMA, and let's change it to a 10 period, like so. So 10 period DEMA. Click OK. All right, so there's our input A, DEMA 10, and so input B. Let's open this up a little bit more. There we go. Let's change input B. And there it is, the DEMA, and this one's going to be a 30 period. And bingo, right, there's our crossover of the two blue lines, right, the two blue EMAs or double EMAs. There we go. All right, so this is what we're filtering out here based on the separation of the other two moving averages. All right, so next we need a comparison solver. Let's plug that in, and let's see here. All right, I need to remind myself what those periods were. All right, a 15 and a 30 period. Okay. So input A is going to be a 15 period EMA, and I'm going to use the search box this time. There we go. All right, EMA 15. And now input B, that's going to be our EMA 30. Oh, there we go. And change it to a 30 period. And there we have it. And let's also name this here. All right, so now begins the process of figuring out what kind of separation do we want. All right, so yeah, the first example I'll do, we'll show you how to set up the comparison solver to make sure there is a minimum separation here. And then on the second example, I'll show how to make sure that there is a maximum distance of separation, right? So let's slide over here. And so this is all done inside the rules window here. Right, so we have right, the faster EMA compared to the slower EMA, and then we have this distance, right, that we can enter in here. So let's see, I'm going to leave it on points here, and let's see here. So for a long, let's say, yeah, so EMA A is going to be the lighter green line here, and so we want it to be greater than EMA B, right, which is the slower, the 30 period EMA. So we're going to take the slower period EMA and add a certain distance here. And let's see here. Let's go, I think 8 points. Yeah, let's try 8 points here. So hit apply. And let's see. All right, so that is 8 points, right? So we can see this area here that has no output, that is where the two EMAs are closer than 8 points together, right? And then once we do get an output, then that means those two EMAs have at least an 8-point separation or more, right? So let's see here. Let's knock this up to maybe 12. All right, that's a little too much. So I'm custom tailoring this, you know, just for what I have in front of me on the chart here. And all right, let's knock this down to 9. Okay, there we go. So 9 shows, right, that we have an output when both of these crossovers occur. But over here, well, let's see, at least this crossover doesn't have an output. So this crossover would get filtered out. It does look like this crossover of the two blue lines does have an output. So maybe it won't be filtered out here. All right, so I'm just going to go with 9 points. Call it good. And I'm going to put in my name there, 9 points, like so. And so now let's apply the filtering here. And I want an AND node. There we go. Connect that in. All right, so let me also mark these bars. All right, so now let's connect in our filter here. All right, so we're only left with the cross up there, right? Now, this filter is right now it's a directional filter, right? So when the faster moving average is above the slower, and there's that 9-point separation or more, right? We're going to get a long output. So that means the long signals get through, the long crossover signals, right? But the short crossover signals do not get through there. And vice versa. Let's see if we can find a short. Let's see. There we go. All right. So here, where the market's in a good downtrend, then the faster EMA, right, is below the slower one, and there's 9 points of separation, right? So this short output would allow for a short crossover. Yeah, there's only a long crossover. So this long crossover here would get filtered out because of this short output. Let's see here. Well, it doesn't look like there's going to be any short crossovers. Let's see here. No. Well, not there either. No, there's no short crossovers there. Well, looks like the market may not give us, give us one, at least not with the 9-point separation there. Yeah, you know what? Let me do this. Let's knock this back down to 8. All right, well, I'm not going to spend too much more time on this here. So, all right. So, I think everybody kind of explains, right, how the filtering works here. But, so let's say the next step here is maybe you just want the separation between the two moving average to be non-directional, right? You know, in the case of these two EMAs, right, it kind of makes sense that you would have a directional filter. But if, yeah, maybe you're comparing the separation of two other indicators. Let's see here. Yeah, I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. Oh, yeah, actually here. Yeah, maybe you want to compare the separation of, I believe, the Darvas indicator is a good example. Let me just double check. Okay, yeah. So maybe you want to check the separation of the Darvas indicator, right? So the Darvas indicator doesn't really give you a trend direction, right? You'd probably use something more like a moving average to give you that trend direction. All right, so you just want to make sure that there's at least enough separation between the Darvas indicator, so it'd be non-directional there. So what we can do is I'm actually going to create another logic template here, and let's add another comparison solver. All right, and let's put in our Darvis indicator. All right, so for input A, all right, input A, that's going to be the upper line here. Put in the upper line. And input B, that will be the lower line for the Darvis. And there we go, the lower line is now plugged in. And now we open up the rules window here. And let's say, yeah, let's say we want at least 15 points of separation here. All right, so in this situation, actually I'm going to include the equals sign as well. So it's going to be 15 points exactly or greater. This time I'm going to switch the comparison types here, make them both the same here, and hit OK. And it looks like sorry, actually, hold on. Yeah, let me put that back. There we go. So when we get a long output here, that tells us the two Darvis lines have at least that 15 points of separation there. Right? When there is no long output, then they're closer together here. But so let's get back to, as I mentioned, making this non-directional, right? So if we only have a long output, then that means only long signals can get through, right, with an AND node here, right? So to make this non-directional, we're going to use a function node here. We're going to use the long short modifier. So I'm going to plug that in. And there's a couple of modes we can use. We can use the maximum mode to do this. We can use the additive mode to do this as well. And let's see, no, not product. What other one? Let's see. Oh, yeah, that's it. I thought there was a third one here. So maximum and additive. And oh, hold on, wrong one. Maximum. There we go. All right. And so when we do that, right, we can see we get a long and a short output together. So that means, so as a filter, right, that means both long and short signals can occur, right, when there's a long and short output together. But when the Darvis indicator is really tight, then all the signals are then filtered out, right? They're blocked. Right? So, and again, right, this filters, right, require an AND node. So that's kind of why AND nodes exist. I say the majority of the time you're using an AND node, right, because you're taking your signal. So in this case, right, something really simple here is just a crossover, and then we're plugging it into an AND node so we can add filters to it, so we can filter out our crossovers here, right? So in the case of like this Darvis filter here, again, right, your actual trade signals get plugged into the AND node, and then the Darvis separation there either allows the signals through or blocks them. And here, let's finish. There we go. Putting that name in there. There we go. Well, So going back to our, little crossover signals here, right? If I wanted to make, let's see, where were those signals? There we go. Right. So if I wanted to make, the separation of these two EMAs kind of universal so that short signals can get through as well. There, let's move that down. Like so, there. Then, right, again, let's kind of take a step back, right? So right now with our crossover signals and our EMA separation, right, only the long cross-up gets through. So to make it universal, I can add that long short modifier to it, plug that in, set the mode to maximum, connect that in, and there we go. Now the short signals get through, right? And so, over here, right, the two EMAs didn't have enough separation, so those crossover signals got blocked. Let's see here. All right, so this is an example of minimum separation. And all right. So I'm going to leave that like that, and now let's do the example here where we want the two indicator lines to have a maximum distance apart, right? Or tight together, close together. So let me copy this one and I'll paste it down here like so. All right, so I should clarify the name here. Here. All right. So now, let's see here. So I'm trying to figure out if I can do this all in the rules window. My instincts are just to use the invert here, invert in the swap. Yeah, I'm not sure, but let's just do the quick and easy answer here. Yeah. So all right, so we do have a solution here, but it may not work in all cases here, right? So the faster EMA is above the slower, right? So we do have that long output here. Yeah, so that would filter out, that would allow the long crossovers through. But we also have this short output, which would allow all the short crossovers through, right? So even though these two lines clearly aren't close together, those shorts would get through here. So this isn't exactly what's wanted. Oh, yeah. Okay. There we go. All right, we're going to use the equals. And I'm going to take off the invert there. All right. So when we're identifying when two indicators are close together, right, we're going to get a non-directional kind of filter here, right? So yeah, so the base setup here is non-directional. And so let's take a look at that. Let me add a AND node, like so. There we go. Right. So yeah, so we can see, right, the two AMAs are close together and we're getting all the crossover signals through, but then when they're separated apart, right, those crossover signals are blocked there. So now let's make this directional. So, and all right, so I'm going to copy this and paste a third one, right? A third comparison solver. But this time we're not going to have any separation requirements here. Right? This is going to be comparing the EMA 15 to the 30 here. So let's go into the rules window. And actually, let's connect that up. There. Let's go into the rules window. And this time, we're just going to put these comparators back to their default state, right? Greater than and less than. And take out the distance. So set those to 0. So basically this is the default state, right? So if I add a new comparison solver here, if I add a new one, and if we look at the rules window, right, it has greater than, less than, and right, the distances are set to 0. Right. So I set this one back to its default state there. And let me undo that. And there we go. Get rid of that extra comparison solver there. All right, so this has been put back to its default rules settings here. And so now, let me connect that in, right? So this is our non-directional filter here, just making sure that the two lines are a maximum distance apart. Then I can plug in the direction filter, and there we have it, right? So the faster EMA is above the slower, so now we only get long signals through, right? And so this short here was filtered out. Let's see. I think that does it. Yeah. Yeah. All All right, so we have an example here of the Darvis, right? Kind of a basic non-directional um, indicator there. Just looking at the upper line, comparing it to the lower line and seeing if there's a minimum separation there. There we go. Actually, yeah, let's, at least on this chart here, let's go in, I'm gonna make that out a little bit bigger. Let's go 25. Yeah, there we go. All right. So here's a couple more areas, right, where the market's really kind of tight together, less than 25 points on the Darvis there. Yeah, like so. And so with this non-directional one, yeah, so we haven't covered this yet. Let's say, so this is identifying, right, when the Darvis has a minimum separation. So let's say we want to identify when the Darvis is tight together. So we can take this long short modifier and invert it here, like so. So after inverting it, now we can see when the Darvis is more than 25 points, then there's no output here, like so, there. All right, so actually, I'm gonna go back into the rules window here and actually put this back to the equals. There. There we go. So we streamlined this even more. All right, so we didn't even need that long short modifier there. Yeah. All right. So this is so when we're using the equals symbol, and this is something new for Bloodhound version 2. So I don't always think about this, using this here, but yeah, the equals and not equals, right? These are two comparators that are new to Bloodhound version 2 and the rules window here. Yeah, so this does add a lot more flexibility here for these rules windows here. Yeah, so essentially that sets up a range, right? So is the Darvis upper line equal to the Darvis lower line within 25 points, right? So that creates a 25-point range above and a 25-point range below, right? So as long as, yeah, these two, as long as the input A is within that 25-point range above and below, the input B, then we get an output there. Right. So now, if we want to identify, right, this is identifying a minimum range here. I'm sorry, a maximum separation. So a maximum range or a maximum separation here. So now, if we wanted to have it be at least 25 points or more, now we can just take this solver and invert it. Just like when I inverted the long short modifier before there. So inverting that single node, now the Darvis indicator has to be at least 25 points of separation there. And again, just to recap here, this AND node's only here because, right, the rest of your system, right, would get plugged into the AND node here, right? So this is just a filtering mechanism, and filters, always are connected into the AND node of the rest of your system here. Yeah, just like going back here to the double EMAs there, right? So this crossover solver is the signal source, right? That's the raw signals there, and then the rest of this is the filtering mechanism to yeah, filter out those crossover signals. All right, well, with that, I think we're done with this topic. So let me move on to the next question that was emailed in here. And yeah, so just give me a moment here to kind of clean up my chart. The next question is identifying a inside bar at a potential pivot point, right? Yeah, so we're going to produce a signal on the inside bar here, but also this inside bar needs to be the third bar in a sequence here. So, for example, right, so we have bar 1, bar 2, and then our third bar, right? This third bar needs to be the inside bar here. So this isn't actually an inside bar. Let's see, is this one? Yeah, this actually is an inside bar here. So this is a good example here, right? So bar 1 coming down, right? So if bar 1 is right, is I let's see here. Yeah, bar 1 is, I guess if the high is higher than the engulfing bar and the low is higher than the engulfing bar, right? So the engulfing bar here is going to be bar 2. Well, this is an engulfing bar of the next bar. So this isn't, yeah, so this isn't an engulfing bar of the previous bar, right? So we don't know this isn't, so in real time, obviously, you don't know that this is an engulfing bar yet, right? So the engulfing bar here of bar number 3, so bar 3 is the inside bar. And there's another requirement here. So for the inside bar isn't actually technically a inside bar because the two lower wicks need to be equal to each other. So we need to have a double bottom here, exactly equal to each other. And so if the two lower wicks are equal and the high is lower, right, than the previous bar, so we're kind of calling this an inside bar just to simplify terminology here, but it's not technically an inside bar. Then So when the two lower wicks are equal, then we'll generate a long signal, but also the first bar, right, has to be above the second bar here, right? So if price is stepping down and we get an inside bar, then we'll generate a long signal here. And going back to our bar numbering here, right, so for here, if the bars are moving higher, and then we get a inside bar here. So again, you'll have to use your imagination. Remember, this is just for illustrating the bar counting here, right? So on our third leg, as some traders might call this, the third leg of this pivot formation here, right? So the inside bar needs to be this third leg here of the pivot formation, right? So same over here. So in this situation, we'll generate a short signal on the third leg or on the inside bar here. So this is an example for a short, and this is an example for a long here. So basically, take this example and just rotate it, flip it, flip it upside down there, and that would generate a short signal. Okay, so with that explanation, let's start building. So actually, let me bring this back up. So this is going to be a bunch of comparison solvers, right? This is all setting up a bunch of comparison solvers. So for a long signal, right, we need the two low prices equaling each other, but also we need the high price, right, of the current bar to be less than the high of the previous bar. All right, so we're going to have comparison number one, and then comparison number two, and then we need some more comparison solvers to compare bar number one, right, to bar number two here. So we'll have to compare these highs and have to compare these lows. So it's a bunch of comparison solvers that we're just gonna chain together there. All right, so Bloodhound open, and let's add a comparison solver. And let's see here. All right, so for a long output, we're going to make sure that the low of the current bar equals the low of the previous bar. And for a short, we're going to make sure the high of the current bar equals the high of the previous bar here. So for you programmers out there, you'll notice my bar indexing is off by 1. And that'll be apparent here in just a moment here. So we're going to set input A to price, and we're going to set input B to price. Right. So let's see. So for a long, we're comparing the lows here. So for the long output, let's set this to the low price. Here. There it is. And then set the short to the high price. And our look back period is going to be left at 1, right? So that's the current bar. So that's why the bar indexes here for those programmers is at 1, not 0. So because I'm putting the look back period up here. All right, so for input B, we're gonna match what we have above here. So long is using the low prices, the short outputs is using the high prices, and this time the look back period is going to be 2, like so. All right, and next we need to go into the rules window here, and we're using the equals condition, right? So we want the low of the first bar to equal the low of the second bar. And let's see if that ever happens. Yeah, here we go. Well, yeah, so we have 2 highs here. We have 2 highs matching. All right, here's a bunch of examples. There we go. So we have 2 lows matching there. Okay. All right. So there's the lows equaling lows and the highs equaling the highs. And so now let's actually generate the next comparison solver, which will compare the opposite bar price, right? So in the case of a long output here, right, the current bar high needs to be less than the previous bar's high, and vice versa for a short. All right, so let's see here. Yeah, I'll just add another comparison solver. So I was wondering if I copied this, if it would save me any time, but actually I don't think so. All right, so for a long output, the high of the current bar has to be less than, there we go, less than the high of the previous bar. All right, and it's the opposite condition for the low prices. All right, so let's go set this up. So we're going to set both of our inputs to price. There we go. And this time, the high prices here are being used for a long output. Right? And again, so just to kind of recap here, why is the high prices being used for a long output? Well, looking at our image, right, we already did compare the low prices, right? The low prices have to be equal. So now to make sure this is a inside bar, now we have to compare the high prices. So for a long signal, right, this time the high price needs to be lower or less than the previous bar's high, right? So we compared the lows equal and the highs equal, right, in our first comparison. So now we're checking the opposite side of the bar price there. All right, so we have our prices in, and remember input B needs to be a look back period of 2, like so. There we go. So now let's open up the rules window. So for a long, the current high has to be less than the previous bar's high. All right, and let's reverse this condition here. Right, so these two conditions are going to be opposite. Click OK. Right, so here we go. So look, this high is actually above the previous bar high, so no output here. And wait, sorry. Yeah, so all these highs are stepping higher, so there's no long. So sorry, when the high is less than the previous bar high, we get a short. So if the high prices are going down, we get a long output, and if the low prices are stepping higher, we get a short output. Right, so that's a little bit of a brain twister there because everything's kind of reversed compared to the way you would probably traditionally set up filters like this for any other signal. All right, so we have our inside bar conditions set up here. Right, so we have the two comparison solvers. Right, so that's comparing, right, our signal bar, right, which is the inside bar, to the previous bar, right, the engulfing bar of our signal bar. So let's see if we actually have any signals on the chart. I was a bit worried we may not have any signals, but all right, here's one. And actually, this is exactly what we're looking for a long signal, right? So once we incorporate this second bar back, right, and the second bar back actually, works good as well, right? So the high is higher than the next bar, the low is higher than the next bar, right? So the bars are stepping down, and then we get this, technically not an inside bar, but this inside bar with a double bottom low price here. Okay. There, and let's see if, well, we can make an exception for this one here. So the lows are stepping higher, but our high prices, they all look the same. Actually, hold on. No, actually, this is an engulfing bar of the neck. So this is an inside bar, and this is an inside bar again. So actually, this will get filtered out. But again, this is more about, so the question here, again, the question was really about how do I identify this, trying to think of a good term, because this isn't really an inside bar, but this kind of, excuse me, hold on, let me take a drink. I guess I'll call this a double bottom, double top inside bar here. So the question is about identifying this double bottom or double top inside bar, right? Which is the third bar in here. So let's see here. All right, so this is bar 1 and 2. Or sorry, bar 2 and 3. Sorry. That's bar 2 and 3. So now let's work on bar number 1. And where's my example? There we go. So there's my nice example to work with here. There, I'm going to turn off the auto scaling of the Darvis there. Okay. All right. So when we get this, so when we reach the signal bar, now we're having to look back 2 bars, or at least look back 1 bar and look back an additional bar here when we're comparing the highs and the lows. Right? So let's see here. Let's add another comparison solver. Connect that up. And let's see here. All right, so for for long, I'm going to say, right, the high of this second bar back has to be higher than the next bar, and the lows has to be higher than the next bar, right? Of course, you guys can adjust this any way you want, but the point is, you know, that since the question requires a 3-bar sequence here, then let's see here. Sorry guys, trying to turn off a notification. All right. So since the question said that, you know, this inside bar here, this double top, double bottom inside bar is a 3rd leg, right? So that means we need to do some kind of comparison on bar number 1, right? So that's what we're doing here. So I don't know exactly what those rules are here, but I'm just going to say, yeah, that so for a long, the bars need to be stepping down, and then for a short, the bars need to be stepping up. All right. So let's see here. So for a long, the all right, so again, this is going to require 2 comparison solvers, right? So for a long signal, right, this first solver is going to look at the high prices there. And then for the short, actually, yeah, I might change my mind on this. You know, there's usually a couple of ways here that we can do something here. So, all right, yeah, actually, I'm just gonna look at the high prices here for for this first comparison, and then the next comparison solver will look at low prices only. All right, so let's put in the high prices here. And let's adjust the look back periods. There we go. And so let's see here. So we need to reverse. Let me double check that. Yep, we need to reverse the comparison conditions there. And all right, so here we go. So when the, well, let's see here, we have a short. Oh, yeah. And remember, we're looking back several bars here. So things aren't, so you have to take the signals and kind of pull them backwards to see what's going on here, right? So this short here, right? The lows are going down, right? Down, 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 right? So these lows going down, I'm sorry. All right, I'm starting to get tongue-tied here. So these highs going down, that is the long output here, right? So this long output here is coming from these highs stepping down. Right? So again, if we're on this bar, why does this have a long? Well, because remember, it's looking back to the previous bar and the next bar after that, right? So our highs are stepping down. So bingo, we have a long output here. Right? And so why do we have a short output here? Well, that's because it's looking back 2 bars, right? It's looking back at these 2 bars, so the lows step higher, right? So here the lows stepped lower, but this short is coming from here to here, right? There to there, and there to there, and so on and so forth. Next one, next one. All right. So we know we have the high set up correctly. And let's see this. I should mark this. There we go. So that is where we expect the long. All right. So we have this long output because the highs step down. And the long output on this bar, right, is coming from these 2 bars there. All right. Okay, so now we have the highs. Let's set up the lows here as well. And let's see. Yeah, this time I will make a copy of this there. This copy works because I just need to replace the high price, all the high prices with low prices, right? Because the condition, right, being stepping up or stepping down, right, greater than, less than, are exactly the same here. There. All right. So now I just need to go into all the price types here and set these to low. And I can actually double click on these, and that'll switch down to the next selection in the menu here. So if you double click on these prices, it just walks down the list on the menu there. So that's basically what an interface. It's nothing specific to Bloodhound, but that's just how programs kind of work there. All right, so they're all switched to low prices. So let's take a look here. So we have a long output, and that is coming from, right, those two. If I go back a bar, so we have a short here because our lows are stepping up one bar back. So now we have a long again because our lows are stepping down, right? If I go one more back, right, our lows are stepping up again, right, so on and so forth. So let's see, these three long outputs in a row here. Let's take a look at those, right? That's coming from these lows stepping lower, and then these lows stepping lower, and these lows stepping lower, but then, right, this low steps higher. And so so these lows start stepping higher, and so that's why we have these two short outputs here. All right, so we're good to go there. So now let's get back to our AND node. So now I can include bar 1, 2, and 3. So all we got to do is connect these in here, like so. And there we have it, right? There is our expected long signal right there. And yeah, remember back here, we almost had a short somewhere. Oh, here we go. Yeah, it was right here. So we almost had a short there, but this actually was this was a inside bar, compared to this bar here. So we didn't quite get it. Ah, here we go. Good. So we do have some short signals. Yeah. So there we have it. All right. So we actually have a couple of bars stepping up here, right? So let's say maybe you wanted this to be a 4-bar sequence, right? Bar 1, bar 2, bar 3, and you want to add in a bar 4, then it's a matter of copying these solvers and you just adjust the look back period, right? So you knock this up to 3 and knock this look back period up to 4, right? So make a copy of these, yeah, and then you can introduce another set of bars there. All right, but also I'm gonna see if I can find an example. So let's say maybe sometimes our third bar, or I'm sorry, our first bar might be where the highs might be equal or the lows might be equal, and you want to build in that exception here. So I actually want to find where that actually happens. It may not. Yeah, I may not have an example to work with. Yeah, it doesn't look like I'm gonna find any examples. Maybe there. No, not quite. Yeah, I'm not finding any examples because these are filtering out what I'm looking for. Um, hmm. All right. Well, this is, yeah. Sometimes finding finding an example just doesn't work out. So let's, yeah. All right. So let's go back to our screenshots here that were sent in. Um, oh, let's see what might be reasonable here. Um, yeah. All right. So maybe the first bar might also have an equal low here, right? So we might have three equal lows in a row, and that's acceptable, but you need the highs to step down, right? So yeah, all three highs here are stepping down, but the lows can be equal. Then let's see here, what would we adjust? Right, so going back to our solvers here. Let's see here. So this is a long. So if the lows are equal, then we go to this solver here that has all the low prices, and we go into the rules window here. Right, go into the comparison rules window, and so for the long, right, they can be less than, and just add the equal condition there. And then if we flip this upside down, then it would be the highs being equal. So where would we go to make sure the highs are equal? Right. So that would be this solver, right? This solver has all the high prices. So let's go into the rules window here. And so the highs are generating a short. So now this greater than would include the equals condition, right? So for the highs, right, the short output would include the equals condition. And then for the long signals, right, go into that rules window. So this time, for the long signals, the lows would include the equals condition there. So yeah, don't have any examples of that, but sometimes drawing a little image for yourself can help you just mentally think this through here slowly, right? Because yeah, sometimes you just don't find examples on the chart, but finding examples on the chart is definitely the best way, to go in and adjust things and see if you got the signal, if the signal shows up, where you're expecting it. So, all right, so let me go back in here, and I'm going to take out these equal conditions. And let's see. All right, I think that does it for this question. All right, let me see if there's any follow-ups on this. All right, yeah, Wayne Wayne is wanting to see each of the comparison solvers and the rules windows. All right, you bet. So, all right, so the first two comparison solvers here are comparing, those are comparing bar 3 and bar 2. So actually, let's go back to this screenshot here. So the two comparison solvers on the top here are comparing bar 3 with bar number 2 here. But of course, the way indicators look at things, this is actually bar 1, this would be bar 2, this would be bar 3, right? So the numbering system, for programs is actually in reverse order here. So the numbers, right? So the numbers are in reverse order. So this is actually bar 3, right? And yeah, bar 2 is bar 2, 2 is 2, but on these others, 3 is actually bar number 1. So, all right, let's go through these here. All right, so the first solver, the low price is used for the long, and you can actually tell by the naming. So the naming convention I like to use is I always put the long signal conditions in first, and then the short signal conditions next. So most of the time, this is actually pretty rare where you'll see lows and then highs. Typically, what I do for my naming convention here is I will do something like low, high. So the low is for, so I'm using the low price for long signals, and then I'm using the high price for short signals. So that's my kind of personal naming convention that I like to use there. So, all right, anyways, let's, there. So as you're looking at the names, right, you can tell what is in price type long and what's in price type short there. All right, so lows and highs, and then the rules window here is we're using the equal condition here. So for the lows, we're using the equal condition. Sorry, the first one, you know, the naming has equals in it. So that tells us that the rules window is using the equal condition there. Yeah, so actually everything you need to know is in the name of each of these solvers here. Right, so the next solver down, right, the long output is using a less than condition, and the short output is using a greater than condition. So let's open that up here. There we go, right? So for the longs, it's using a less than. For shorts, it's using a greater than, right? So, but, and this time, the prices are reversed. So we're using the high price for longs, and the low price is for shorts this time. And again, you can tell by the naming convention. So I have, right, the first solver is using the low price first. So that's for the longs, and high price is next. That's for the shorts, and then we reverse things. So high price is for longs, low price is for shorts. All right, and then the next solver down here. All right, so again, this is all using all high prices. And for longs and shorts, all high prices. And right, look back is 2 for input A. Input B, the look back period is 3. Again, it's all in the name here. Okay. And then the comparators also are in the name. So let's open that up. There we go. So for the long, we're using a less than. For shorts, we're using a greater than. And for the last solver here, right, it's using all low prices here, right? Price type long and price type short, all set to low price there. And again, the look back periods are the same, 2 and 3. And then for the rules window here, there we go. So less than is for the longs, greater than is for the shorts. All right, so there's our follow-up for Wayne. Yeah, you're welcome, Wayne. Yeah, this was Wayne's question, by the way, in case anybody was wondering. Uh, let's see. All right, so let's move forward here and address Craig's questions here. So, all right. So it sounds like Craig is new here. And Craig has some new kind of customer questions here. Let's see, actually, all right, first I should name my logic templates here. Let's see. Hmm. Oh, actually, there's one more element here. Yeah, one more element here. Let me first find an example here. Yeah. So one more comment here, and I'm gonna have to scan through the signals here and see if I can find an example first. Yeah, here we go. Okay. Yeah. Oh, actually, I have two examples here. So let's say when you get a long signal, you need this inside bar to be an up bar, right? So we have a long signal on a down bar. So let's say you want to make sure that this is an up bar, that the signal bar is an up bar, right? The bar direction matches the signal. So if we wanted to do that, then let's see, where should I put this here? Yeah, I'll put this up here. So let's add a bar direction solver and just connect it in there. And there we go. Where was that signal? I think it was right there. Let's disconnect this. Yeah, there we go. All right, there, we'll mark it. There we go. All right, that was our signal, but it's a down bar on a long signal. So we can just add a bar direction, and there we go. All right, and let's say even further, I had a long signal back here. All right. And so let's say we wanted to, well, that's not a good example. Hold on. All right. Gonna have to look through some more of these. All right. Actually, I think what I was looking for on the second bar, which is the engulfing bar, I'm not going to find it. So I was, wondering if maybe I could find an up bar for the engulfing bar, but I don't. Yeah, that's not going to happen. So let's see. So I'm going to look at the third bar here. Oh, actually, here we go. Look at this. All right. So this engulfing bar is an up bar. But let's say you wanted bar 1 and bar 2 to be both down bars. And again, let's name that, right? So there we go. That's bar 1. So let's add another bar direction. Right? This will be bar 2. And let me mark this. There we go. So if bar 2 has to be a down bar for a long signal, then first thing we have to do is swap this, right? And then also the start bars a go, we need to increase that to 1, right? So what that does is the start bars a go is it's going to take the bar direction from this bar and shift it forward 1 bar, right? Start bars a go effectively does the same thing as a, let's see if I have an example. No, I don't. Okay, let me add a comparison here, right? So the start bars a go effectively does the same thing as a displacement, right? Displacement shifts your signals forward in time, right? So yeah, so that displacement there is what this start bars a go does effectively here. So all right, yeah, so I have my bar direction reversed, and I have start bars to go to 1, and now I can connect this in, and there you go. This signal disappears because this is an up bar. So now we're filtering for bar 2. Bar 2 has to be in the opposite direction of the signal. And we can do the same thing for bar number 1, right? Bar number 1. And again, I'm kind of counting backwards here. So I could copy this bar direction, paste it, right? So third bar back, and then all I gotta do is increase the start bars to go to number 2, right? And so then that is looking at, right, our second bar back here. Connect that in, and there we go. So now we got even more filtering here based on bar direction. So there we go. So down bar, and the signal bar is an up bar. All right. Yeah, so I'm going to disconnect those and just leave them on there, just in case. But yeah, I could see that most likely, right, the signal bar is probably, the bar direction is going to be wanted to match the signal direction. So this bar number 1 here, most likely I think most people will want to, connect that into the system there. Okay, there we go. That was my last little extra there. All right. There. All right, now I got all of these topics here named. There we go. All right, now I'm ready to move on to Craig's questions here. Um, let's see here. All right. Yeah, so Craig was wanting, yeah, his first question here was really a, excuse me, let me clear my throat. All right, hopefully I can talk now. So, yeah, Craig's was his first question there. Yeah, how to enter and exit stop loss and a profit target parameters. Yeah, so yeah, I think those were mainly Blackbird questions. So that would be for tomorrow. But actually, Craig, what I would first suggest, since you really do have some basic questions, is to go through the introductory videos, right? And that'll walk you through setting up those really simple things there. Right. So let's see here. So if we go, let me open up our, all right, so here's our home page of the website. And you just go to support and documentation there. And then right here, there's a link to the getting started videos there. All right, let's click on that. There we go. Quick start videos. And let's see here. Number 5 is the first Blackbird video there. So let's scroll down here to number 5. There. Yeah, so this will walk you through just some very basic introduction to Blackbird there. And that'll show you how to set up your stop losses and your profit targets there. So, and then if you want to get a little more advanced, it'll show you how to set up trailing rules. So trailing for your stop loss, things like that. So, yeah, so here we go, the getting started guide. Right, so again, if you go to support, go to documentation, and it's this first link right here on the top there. All right, and all right, so going through, so Craig got to number 4. You were one video away from getting your answer. Ah, shoot, isn't that how it goes sometimes? Okay. And let's see here. All right, the next one, converting his shark indicators and converting it to a strategy. Yeah, so that's what Blackbird is for. So Blackbird will take your Bloodhound signals and yeah, you can incorporate your Bloodhound signals into Blackbird, and then Blackbird can trade them there. The same with Raven as well. Yeah, so we have Raven and Blackbird are both strategies there. All right, so let me pull up the strategies window like I did earlier. Right, so there we go, inside the shark indicators folder. Yeah, so there's Blackbird, the more advanced one, and there's Raven, the very simple one. So with Raven, let's add it here. For the trade management, right, it has one profit target and one stop loss, right? So again, this is just a very simple freebie that we give with Bloodhound, so you can at least do some initial backtest results there, right? So, and actually, if your system is really simple enough, then maybe Raven's all you need. You know, if you just want one profit target and one stop loss, then you're good to go. So, and the measurement units here, or the offset distances for your profit target and stop loss, are either ticks ATR or percentage based there. So, and, all right, let's cancel that. Now, if you're wanting to write your own custom strategy, then you need to know how to be a programmer first of all. But there is documentation on our website for programmers that it shows you how to take Bloodhound signals and incorporate Bloodhound into your own custom coded strategy there. And again, this is for programmers here. So under the Bloodhound menu here, if we scroll down to the bottom of the section, there you go, fully automated trading. Right, so there's the page for Raven, and here you go, custom Bloodhound strategy there. Okay, so there's an example there. Actually, there's two examples. Yeah. So there you go. So if we go to that page, there you go. All right, this just lets you know that Shark Indicators, we do not provide any zero amount of programming support. We are not programmers for hire. So if you need programming advice, you can go to NinjaTrader, or you can consult with a company that actually provides programming services. So we do not provide any programming services there. There you go. So anyway, yeah, so if we want to build your own custom strategy, there you go. Here's the documentation for it, and all that. So that is there on the website. And there's also some example code here. Let's see. Yeah, let me go into the Bloodhound example 1. Click on that. And let's see here. Yeah, so here's the code. Also, there we go. And there's some downloads here. And oh, actually, I just caught something that needs to be updated on our website here. All right, yeah, so this tells you that when you install the developer extensions with our installer, it will copy, right? It'll copy this code. It'll copy this file to your it'll copy this file here to your strategies folder there. But our installer no longer has developer extensions. Yeah, a lot of people were installing it, not knowing what they were doing. Yeah, so we do actually have a separate file here that should be, yeah, we should provide a link here with that separate developer extensions installer there. So that hasn't been done yet. So, but for any of the programmers out there, if you are thinking of writing your own custom strategy utilizing Bloodhound, just email into support and ask for the developer extensions installer. Yeah, the installer for the developer extensions. So, and that's how you can get a copy of this file here. Actually, it'll give you the copy of example. Let me go back here. So that developer extensions installer includes this strategy file for example 1 and example 2. Yeah, so you'll get both of these there. So, all right. Okay, anyways, I don't think that's what Craig was probably talking about, but just in case there are some programmers here in the room, that is where you can find this information for pulling bloodhound signals into your own custom strategy. So, let's see here. And also, again, the getting started videos here that I showed Craig earlier. Let me go back. There we go. So these getting started videos, let's go, yeah, where's number 5? This video here also will give you a quick explanation of pulling your bloodhound signals into Blackbird as well. So, okay, and let's see here. What also, well, I guess while I'm at it, let's go to the Blackbird section of the menu, and there's a bunch of training videos right here. So we can go to these training videos page in the Blackbird section there, and and there you go. So adding Blackbird and basic order set, setting up, right? So an order set is, right, your entry order, your profit target, and your stop loss, right? That is an order set. So, all right, so there you go. There's videos on the management buttons there, right? The money management. All right, there we go. The scheduling, so on and so forth. And there you go. And the trade signals. So how do you pull in your bloodhound? How do you pull in your bloodhound and your bloodhound signals, or a third-party indicator? So maybe you have an indicator that actually provides a dedicated signal for the strategy development there. All right. So these little markers like this are not signals, right? So strategies cannot read those little markers there. So there are videos, or a video, that talks about third-party indicators and what kind of output you need from that indicator to be readable, for a strategy there. Let's see here. And so here's a video on order sets right here. And then here's some, common questions here. So a lot of people will want to convert their ATM into Blackbird. So, and here you go. Here's an overview of backtesting. So I know that was one of Craig's other questions here. Let's see, where was it? Okay, yeah, so it's his second question down. Yep, he was wondering, what product do you use to make a strategy and for optimizing? Yeah, so that is Blackbird here. Yeah. So let me go back up to the side menu here. So under the side menu, there you go. There is a page on the optimization there. So let's go to that page. And here is an introductory video for optimizing, for the optimizer. And then also remember, the optimizer, it's not a Shark Indicators product, right? The optimizer comes from NinjaTrader. So optimizing is a NinjaTrader product. Blackbird is just the strategy that you set up in NinjaTrader's strategy analyzer, right? So it's NinjaTrader's strategy analyzer here. Where is it? Yeah. So this is a NinjaTrader product. So make sure that you have read the documentation for the strategy analyzer before you dive into optimization. Otherwise, you're just going to be lost there. So we do have links to NinjaTrader's documentation for the strategy analyzer, and then another link that goes specifically to the optimization within the strategy analyzer documentation there. So there's some convenient quick links there, save you a little time searching through Ninja's documentation there. All right. Let's see here. Okay, so here's another topic here. So just for clarification, Bloodhound does not build indicators. Bloodhound is not an indicator generator. It doesn't generate any indicator code. So so what I like to refer to these, so if you build a system, right, that generates trade signals, well, if you build anything in Bloodhound, I generally just call it a system, because not everything generates trade signals, right? You could use Bloodhound for discretionary purposes to just kind of give you the bias of the market. As a very simplistic example here, let me just pull up this solver here that I've already used in the first question for today, right? So this just compares the EMA 15 period to the EMA 30 period. So maybe you're comparing two EMAs as kind of a loose trend filter for discretionary trading, right? So you could just do something real simple like this. Maybe you have one other kind of comparison that you do with moving averages or indicators that you use for trend filtering on your own discretionary trading there, right? So you could just use Bloodhound for this, right? And there you go. So this tells you when the faster EMA is above the slower EMA, right? And so obviously these are not trade signals, but it just says, hey, your EMAs are in a long trend now, and now your EMAs are in a short trend. So you could just use Bloodhound for that. So it's not necessarily trade signals per se, so I just kind of refer to everything that you build in Bloodhound, not as an indicator, but as a system, right? So, and that system could be just trend direction, or that system could be signals. And I'm not sure if I have any signals. Yeah, maybe not. Nope. Yeah, it doesn't. Oh, there we go. So there's a signal. So, all right. Yeah. So just to be clear, Bloodhound does not output indicators. So, all right. So let me kind of clean up the Q&A window here a little bit. All right, I'm just going through Craig's questions here to find the next one. So Craig was asking, so the training for Blackbird is on Friday, that's correct. The training for Raven has an exception here because, back in the beginning, I think it was like the first 5 years of Shark Indicators, we only had Bloodhound and Raven, so we didn't actually have Blackbird. So Raven and Blackbird were done together in the same workshop here. But also, if all you purchase is Bloodhound, well, where do you ask your Raven questions? Well, since Raven comes free with Bloodhound, then Raven gets an exception, and I will answer Raven questions in the Bloodhound workshop as well. So, all right. So Raven questions can be answered on Thursdays or Fridays, both workshops. So. All right, let's see. Next on the list. So the next question is, yeah, so Bloodhound develops signals, but to implement as a strategy, one has to write code. No, that you can plug Bloodhound into Raven or Blackbird. So yeah, that's why Raven and Blackbird exist, so that you can plug your Bloodhound signals directly into either one of those strategies, and you're good to go. So that way you don't have to write any code. All right, looks like we got through Craig's questions here. And oh, good. So Craig is already familiar with Ninja, with the Strategy Analyzer Optimizer. Well, good. That'll save you a bunch of times. And all right. Yeah, good. Looks like I got through all of Craig's questions. So, and yeah, so I'll just note that in Raven, yeah, Raven doesn't have the full-fledged optimizing selectable variables that Blackbird does. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm just wondering how I want to approach this. All right, yeah, so I'm on the optimization page here for Blackbird, right? So this configure optimizable settings, right? Basically, you're selecting what kind of what indicator parameters you want to optimize for, right? And that's with this window here. So and since Raven is so simplistic and basic, it does not have this window here. So with Raven, the only things that can be optimized here, let's pull up let me pull up the strategy window again, and let's take a look at Raven. Yeah. So because Raven actually has your profit target distance, right, and your stop loss distance exposed, right, as a property, right, on the strategy window property grid. Right, so NinjaTrader calls this a property grid, right? It's properties, and it's laid out in a grid fashion, right? You got two columns and a bunch of rows. So anyway, since we have exposed the profit target and stop loss, right? These settings here can be, the optimizer does recognize this. Actually, this is exactly how, if you want to optimize a strategy, this is what NinjaTrader requires, is you have to, expose your profit target and a numeric value for each of the profit targets there. And then the optimizer can optimize, however many ticks you're wanting, to optimize for your profit target, or how many ATR multipliers. So if you want a 2 ATR profit target and 2 ATR stop loss, right? Then you can optimize, you can optimize these two settings here. So, and that's the only thing that's optimizable, right? So nothing, Raven doesn't have the ability to expose your bloodhound indicators. So only Blackbird has that ability. All right. So that was my last little follow-up comment there. And with that, I am out of questions. So let's see where we're at. Okay, we're past the 2 hour mark. So that's about average for the Bloodhound workshops, but that doesn't mean we're done yet. So, all right, so everybody, I'll give everybody at least 5 or 6 minutes to get some more questions in here. All right, so I'll hang around for at least another 5 or 6 minutes to see if there's any more questions. All right, and if there are no more questions during that time, then I'll take that as my cue that we're done for the day. All right, so if you got questions, you got plenty of time to get those typed into the Q&A window, and that'll keep the workshop going. So as long as questions keep coming in, the workshop will stay open. But once there's a lengthy period of time where there's no questions, then that's what I use to determine when the workshop ends. So no questions. All right, guys, so I'm just going to hang around for 5 minutes or so to see if there's any more questions. All right. All right, so I have a question from Raja, I think, or Raju. Sorry, yeah, not sure how to pronounce that name. Anyways, let's see here. Yeah, so how to block locks, additional long signals until a short signal arrives. Yeah, so if you want a continuously alternating signals here, so you get one long signal and then the next one has to be a short signal, and then the next one has to be a long signal, and then the next one, right? So you're constantly alternating from long to short, and only one is allowed through. That is a case for the signal blocker here. All right, so let's, all right. All right, let's use this logic template here. And all right, so only want one signal in the same direction. So let's see here. Let me go back and, all right, yeah. So I'm gonna take this system here, and yeah, I'm gonna use this for my set of signals here from this previous question here, right? This inside bar reversal. So actually, let me copy that, and actually I'm gonna delete this. And now I can copy this. This will save me a little bit of time here. There we go. Paste the name in there. All right, so I'm gonna delete those extras. All right, so now I have some signals to work with, like so. And first, let's take a look at the signals. And, all right, here we go. So we have 3 long signals, right, in a row there. And there we go. So short, then we got long, 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 short, and actually we have 2 shorts, right? So if we want alternating signals, then we're going to go to the function nodes, add a signal blocker, and the signal blocker is already set up by default to do that. So all we need to do is connect it in, like so, and adjust the number of bars we need to block for here. So let's see here. Let's put in 50 and see if 50 is enough here. And also, I'm going to turn the actively blocking on, set it to 0.2. And let's see here. All right, so we get this long signal, and we can see the actively blocking. So 50 bars is not long enough because, right, when the blocking turns off, another short signal got through. So let's go back to the signal blocker, and let's probably do 150. Let's do 150. And there we go. So we get this long signal comes through, and we can see it's blocking and blocking and blocking until the short signal comes through. And so there we have it. So now we have alternating signals. We have a long here, right? We have a short here, long here, short, long, short, long, short. Yeah. So again, the default settings for the signal blocker is to set up this alternating signals here. The only thing that needs to be determined is how many bars do you need to block for. And so that's why I like to turn on the actively blocking here. So, oh, look at that. So we have a long signal, long signal, long signal. And so that's well over, that looks like at least, and another long signal here. Okay. Yeah, so 150, 150. So that's 500 and 650. All right. So looks like we better put in 1,000. So yeah, better put in 1,000. There we go. And there we go. So right, long, short, long, and the actively blocking is going until we reach the next short signal. So there we go. Yeah. And then once you've kind of figured out how many bars you need to block for, then if you want, you can turn this actively blocking back off. So we can set that back to 0. And there we go. Yeah, so if we look at all these, yeah, all alternating. So what's the setting that puts the signal blocker into this alternating mode here? And it is the resets, right? So it's the resets that does that. And it is this input opposite signal, right? So if so let's see here. Actually, let me shrink this up a little bit. There we go. So with our signals here, so if a long signal comes in, right, it's actually, let me turn the blocking back on. There we go. Actively blocking, let's turn that back on here. So let's open up our resets. And so the reset signal, we're not using the reset connector. So this actually isn't doing anything. It's the input opposite signal, right? So at the input here, right, when a long signal comes in, we can see the signal blocker is actively blocking long signals. But when an opposite signal comes in, so the short, right, is opposite of what's being blocked, that resets the signal blocker, right? So you can see when this short comes in, it resets the blocking of the long signals, right? So the long blocking gets turned off by this opposite signal coming in. And so now the shorts are being blocked, and then the opposite signal comes in and it turns off the short blocking. So there you go. The input opposite signal is what sets up this alternating signal blocking there. All right, so there we have it. All right, well, that was another question came in here. So, all right, so I will restart the timer here and give everybody at least 5 minutes or maybe 6 there to get in some more questions. Yeah, you're welcome, Raj. All right, so if there's any more questions out there, I'll give you at least 5 minutes or more to get those typed in the Q&A window, right? Otherwise, yeah. Otherwise, if I don't see any more questions, then we'll wrap it up. All right, gentlemen, again, I'm just waiting around for a few more minutes to see if there's any more questions here before closing it up. All right, so I do have another question here. Um, yeah, so Raj is asking, so if he wants to set up some criteria for the opening candle, should he use the time solver? I have no clue. I don't know what that criteria is. So I don't see how the time solver yeah, I don't see how the time solver comes into play for setting up criteria for a specific bar. Um, hmm. And now, how to carry something forward? Yeah, there actually is a good video on that that covers all the ways to carry something forward here. So it is an older video, but it is an older video, but the way all the function nodes work is still the same between Bloodhound version 1 and version 2, right? So this video is a concept video, right? So I'm going to point you to that video, but first, let's see here. Let me add a new logic template here. So either you can use the look back node to push signals forward, right? So your criteria is going to have an output, so you can push that output forward using the look back node, using the signal extender, or using the toggle node. So those are the three nodes that you can use to take an output, from a set of solvers that are looking for this criteria, and then extending that output forward in time to when the actual trade signal might occur, right? Yeah, so let's see here. Yeah, so let me go find that video here. Yeah, and that is actually something I yeah, I do want to get around to updating here, but considering how late it is already, yeah, I don't want to get started on that right now. But actually, I want to do some. I need to kind of do a little prep work, a little rehearsal in my head. I don't want to just do this cold turkey, otherwise, it won't be a very good. It won't be a very good video. Yeah. All right. So let's see here.
Order filled.
All right. So
Order canceled.
let's see. So on the training workshops page, I'm going to scroll down here and let's see if I can remember what it's called. Oh, I think it's called something like connecting conditions together, or like connecting point A, condition A to condition B or something like that. So it's just see if the word connecting here. Well, there's one, connecting signals using a signal extender. Oh, there's another one here. That's Bloodhound 1 using the look back node, to connect conditions. So I'm finding the separate ones here. There it goes. Linking. Sorry, not connecting. I used the term linking. Linking multiple trade conditions together. That's the one. So this one here covers all three function nodes, and talks about their pros and cons for each one, and how and some kind of, I guess, common examples of when you might want to use the toggle node versus using the signals extender versus using the look back node, right? Yeah. So this one here, linking multiple trade conditions together. So there you go. Connecting or linking. Yeah, so both of those terms came up with some good videos there. So there we go. Yeah, linking, there you go. Linking multiple trade conditions. All right, so there's that. Okay, now there we go. So Raj has got some more specific info for me. Like if the first candle is a doji, and I want to use it as a condition later. Okay, so yeah, so if you want to identify if the opening bar is a doji, yeah, and that's the only time you want to look for a doji is on the opening bar, then yes, use the time session solver to isolate that opening bar there. So let's see here. So for example, let's add a time session solver. Actually, you know what? There is a video that has what you want there. Let's see. Let's see if that finds it. Yeah, okay. Yep, here we go. So the 5-minute opening bar breakout system here. Yeah. So if we go in there, man, I wish YouTube would get rid of this. Oh, there we go. No thanks. Okay. Here we go. Oh, actually, okay. This video actually uses the time block. Um, yeah, so both will work. Um, um, yeah, the time block might be more reliable, uh, or easier to set up, um, or not reliable. The time block might be more universal. That's the proper word I'm looking for, is universal. So yeah, the time session solver here, so we can, let's see here. So with the time session solver, let's see, I'm going to change my resolution down to 5 minutes. There. There, I'm just going to do Thursday here. Like so, connect that in. Now, I'm on a 1 minute chart, so obviously it's going to highlight all of these. So let's switch to a 5 minute chart. And okay. All right. Yeah, I was not expect. Oh, yeah. Actually, that's correct. Yeah. So yeah. So in the time session solver here. It does include, yeah, 9:30 exactly. So let's just add 1 second to that. There we go. So if we add a second to that, actually I need to redo it to Thursday here. Let's add 1 second to that. So that way it doesn't actually include the 9:30 bar, right, which is before the market opens. There we go. All right. So there we go. So with the time session solver, right, you have to be very specific with, you know, whatever chart you're working with. Whereas the threshold solver and using the time block indicator, yeah, is a little more universal. All right, so let's go into tools. There's the time block. And there we go. So the first output here is start bar, right? So now the time block indicator is a very, very basic kind of indicator here. So it doesn't have a time zone. So you have to put in the correct times for your time zone there. So there you go. So just put in the correct start time, and then the indicator will identify which bar correlates with your start time there. And right, so it doesn't matter what chart you're on. You'd be on a second chart, a range chart, tick chart, week chart, right? And you're good to go. There. Actually, I guess oh yeah, I had this set to mountain time. So there we go. If I put that on Eastern time, there. And oh yeah, once again, let's see here. Let's go into the time block indicator. Yeah. There you go. We'll put 1 second after the market opens. There we go. All right. So now both of these work, right? But if I go back and change my chart, and there we go. Yeah, so here you go. So the 731 bar, right? That's the first bar of the open. And this one, right, there you go. So the time session solver, right, is gonna find, all 5 bars, right? So you'd have to go in there and kind of make sure, right, that we identify this exactly there. There we go. All right. Oh, and yeah, so one more thing here is if you're going to use the time block with the threshold solver, you're going to want a long and a short output. So let's set both of these to the same. There we go. There we go. All right, so we have a long and a short output. So we're going to set the long condition and the short condition both to greater than 0. So there you go. That's how you would identify the opening candle, right? 2 ways to do it. And then, yeah, after watching that video, you can determine if you're going to use the look back, the signal extender, or the toggle node. So most likely I'm guessing the signal extender, but yeah, it all kind of depends there. All right, another question taken care of. And with that, I will reset the timer and start it up again. So, all right, so I'll give everybody another, 5 or 6 minutes to see if there's any other questions I can answer. Yeah, you're welcome, Raj. So that's exactly what these workshops are for. All right, gentlemen, I see we're losing people in the room, so we're almost at the 3 hour mark, so it feels like we're done for today. All right, so with that, gentlemen, you guys have a good rest of your day, and you all know the drill. If you have Blackbird questions, you can either email those into support, hopefully sometime soon, or I'll see you in tomorrow's Blackbird workshop. Okay, guys, have a good rest of your day. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.